Part 1. The Bitter Winter of 1879. In the winter of 1879, the Nebraska plains sprawled vast and unrelenting, a frontier where dreams of new beginnings clashed with nature's unforgiving wrath. The snow-draped landscape, breathtaking in its stark beauty, concealed a brutal edge, blizzards that could bury a man in hours, winds that cut like a Bowie knife. Survival demanded grit, and kindness was rarer than a buffalo herd in those days. This is the story of Emily Carter, a widowed schoolteacher whose love for learning sustained her through grief, and Black Hawk, a Lakota hunter whose wisdom bridged worlds divided by mistrust. Abandoned by her community, Emily faced starvation in the deadliest winter in decades, until Black Hawk's compassion forged an unlikely bond, a testament to resilience and the human spirit's capacity to connect when hope seems lost. The Nebraska winter of 1879 descended with a vengeance that locals still talk about in hushed tones. Snow fell in relentless sheets, piling high against barns and erasing trails, while winds roared like locomotives through the Platte River Valley. In the small town of Willow Creek, settlers huddled in their sod houses, feeding cast-iron stoves and swapping tales of the Oregon Trail to ward off the gloom. But at the edge of town, one home stood apart, a modest clapboard cottage where a faint wisp of smoke from the chimney grew weaker each day. Emily Carter, 34, stood at her frost-covered window, her breath fogging the glass. Her auburn hair, once neatly pinned, hung loose, and her green eyes, once alight with passion for teaching, now held the hollow stare of loss. Grief had carved faint lines around her face, softening her youthful features. 3 months, she whispered, marking the time since her husband Thomas succumbed to a fever that swept through Willow Creek. The illness had taken him swiftly, leaving Emily alone in a town that once valued her as their schoolmarm, but now saw her as a liability. Her woodpile was nearly gone, and her pantry held only a sack of cornmeal, a jar of pickled beets, and a handful of dried apples, barely enough for a week, let alone the winter. A sharp knock startled her. "Mrs. Carter, it's Mayor Thompson," a gruff voice called. Emily smoothed her calico dress and opened the door, letting in a blast of icy air and the stout figure of Amos Thompson, Willow Creek's mayor. "Mayor," she greeted, her voice steady despite her unease. Thompson brushed snow from his boots but stayed near the door, signaling a brief visit. His shrewd eyes scanned her sparse home, noting the dwindling firewood and the few possessions she hadn't sold for food. "Mrs. Carter, I'll cut to the chase. The town council met last night about your situation." Emily braced herself. Since Thomas's death, the council had meddled in her affairs, offering unsolicited advice and solutions that served everyone but her. "And what's their verdict on my private matters now?" she asked, a hint of defiance creeping into her tone. Thompson's face tightened. "Don't take that tone, Emily. We're concerned neighbors trying to help. Fact is, you can't stay here. Your teaching post was temporary until we found a proper replacement." By proper, Emily knew he meant a man. The town had made it clear that a widow, despite her degree from Mount Holyoke, was unfit to educate their children. "The Harper family's heading to North Platte tomorrow," Thompson continued. "They've agreed to take you along. John Harper knows folks there. Maybe you could find work as a seamstress or governess." "A seamstress?" Emily's voice rose, incredulous. "Mayor Thompson, I was hired to start Willow Creek School. I've taught your kids Shakespeare, algebra, and the Constitution. I've shown them a world beyond these plains, and now you want me to stitch aprons." Thompson shifted, uncomfortable. "Things have changed, Mrs. Carter. Without Thomas's blacksmithing income, and with Mr. Reynolds taking over the school next spring," he gestured at her barren home, The Harpers are doing you a favor. Emily knew the Harpers. Clara Harper had called her education uppity and pulled her kids from school after Thomas's death, claiming they were needed on the farm but really objecting to a widow's authority. "And if I refuse?" Emily asked quietly. Thompson's eyes narrowed. "Then the town can't be held accountable for what happens. Your supplies won't last a month, let alone the winter. We've got our own families to feed. Charity has limits." The threat cloaked in concern hung heavy. "Accept the offer or starve." "I need time to think," Emily said, her voice steady despite the cold dread pooling in her chest. "The Harpers leave at dawn," Thompson replied, already turning to leave. "Pack light, their wagon's full, and they're doing you a kindness." Alone, Emily sank into the rocking chair Thomas had built for their wedding, a sturdy oak piece with a carved heart on the backrest. Memories of his calloused hands shaping the wood brought fresh tears. They'd come west with dreams. Thomas would forge tools, Emily would teach, and together they'd build a community rooted in progress. Now Thomas rested beneath frozen sod, and Willow Creek had turned on her, seeing only her vulnerability. That night, Emily wrestled with her options. The practical choice was to join the Harpers. North Platte was bigger, with more opportunities. But her heart rebelled. The Harpers were speculators, chasing land deals with John's brother. Their views on women were as rigid as a prairie fence post. Life with them would mean abandoning her identity as a teacher. By dawn, she'd made her choice. She would stay. When the Harpers' wagon rolled past without stopping, Emily felt a pang of panic. Had Thompson even told them she'd refused? Through her frosted window, she watched the wagon vanish into the swirling snow, relief mixing with fear of the uncertain future. Part 2: Desperation and a Fateful Journey. 3 days later, Emily's situation was dire. The temperature had plummeted to bone-chilling depths, her woodpile reduced to a few sticks. She layered every garment she owned, petticoats, shawls, Thomas's old wool coat, but the cold seeped through her home's thin walls. Her food was nearly gone. On the 4th morning, she awoke to a frozen water bucket and a dead fire, her breath clouding in the frigid air. With trembling hands, Emily dressed and ventured outside for the last of her firewood. The world was alien. Snow drifted against her house, nearly burying the windows. The path to town was gone, though smoke from distant chimneys mocked her isolation. As she struggled with an armful of wood, a figure appeared at her property's edge. For a moment hope flared, someone from town checking on her. Then she recognized Silas Boone, the general store owner who'd extended credit after Thomas's death, now long expired. "Mrs. Carter," Boone called, trudging through the snow. "Didn't expect you here. Thought you'd gone with the Harpers." Emily clutched the wood tighter. "I declined, Mr. Boone." His weathered face flashed surprise, then irritation. "That was foolish, ma'am. Plain foolish." His eyes flicked to her meager woodpile. "I came to see if there's anything worth salvaging. Mayor Thompson said you'd likely abandon the place, and there's your debt to my store." The audacity, that her home would be scavenged like a derelict homestead, struck Emily like a slap. "This is my property, Mr. Boone. I haven't abandoned anything." Boone's expression hardened. "Property needs taxes paid, Mrs. Carter, taxes you can't afford. As for your debt—" "I'll settle my debt," Emily interrupted, summoning dignity despite her desperation. "But not by letting vultures pick over my home." Boone's eyes glinted dangerously. "Watch your tongue, widow. You've no man to protect you now, and winter's just started. Pride won't keep you warm when the blizzards hit." With that, he turned and trudged back to town, leaving Emily shaking with cold, fury, and the dawning truth: she couldn't survive alone. That night, as winds rattled her windows and temperatures sank to deadly lows, Emily faced reality. Willow Creek had abandoned her, valuing her as little as the snow piling against her door. In the pre-dawn darkness, she made a desperate plan. She'd trek to Clearwater, a settlement 15 miles northwest. The journey was treacherous in good weather, suicidal now, but staying meant certain death. By first light, Emily packed what she could carry: a bit of cornmeal, Thomas's hunting knife, matches wrapped in oilcloth, a wool blanket, and his brass compass. She dressed in layers, wrapping a scarf around her face and donning Thomas's fur-lined gloves. Stepping into the bitter morning, she whispered a farewell to the home where she and Thomas had dreamed of a future, now buried with him. Tears froze on her cheeks as she set out. The journey began with deceptive calm. The storm had paused, leaving a pale blue sky and deep snow. Using Thomas's compass, Emily headed northwest, keeping the rising sun to her right. For hours, determination drove her, visions of Clearwater's schoolhouse fueling her steps. But by midday, dark clouds loomed, and a biting wind carried the first flakes of a new storm. Emily quickened her pace, but fatigue set in, her legs burning from trudging through knee-deep snow. By afternoon, the blizzard engulfed her. Visibility dropped to a few feet, and the howling wind drowned out her sense of direction. The compass was useless as she detoured around drifts and hidden obstacles. "Keep moving," she urged herself, hearing Thomas's voice in her mind. "To stop is to die." But as daylight faded, Emily realized she was lost. Landmarks from Thomas's maps were invisible, and her strength waned. A dangerous warmth spread through her limbs, hypothermia's deadly lure. As darkness fell, Emily stumbled into a small grove of pines, their branches offering scant shelter. With her last strength, she crawled beneath the largest tree, wrapping her blanket tightly around her. The storm raged on, snow piling around her, entombing her in white. Her thoughts drifted to Thomas, to her students, to the life slipping away. "Not yet," she murmured, fighting sleep's pull. But nature cared nothing for her resolve. Her eyes closed, consciousness fading. Part 3: A Stranger's Mercy. Just as Emily surrendered to the cold, a sound cut through the storm, rhythmic footsteps, deliberate and strong. She forced her eyes open, glimpsing a tall silhouette moving through the snow. For a wild moment, she thought it was Thomas, returned to save her. The figure paused, then approached her hiding place with purpose. Emily fumbled for Thomas's knife, fear spiking through her numbness. The wilderness held dangers beyond cold, outlaws and drifters who'd see a lone woman as prey. The pine branches parted, and Emily raised the knife with a trembling hand. The stranger froze, then spoke in a deep, calm voice. "You're far from any town, white woman. The storm claims many tonight." In the dim light, Emily saw a Lakota man, his face partially shielded by a fur-lined hood, his winter clothing adorned with intricate beadwork. His eyes, weary yet kind, studied her. "I lost my way," she rasped. "I was trying for Clearwater." He regarded her silently. "Clearwater is miles west. This path leads only to death." His words echoed her own realization. She lowered the knife, her grip weakening as survival instinct gave way to trust. He assessed her condition. "You can't stay here. The cold has you." "Can you stand?" he asked, his tone practical. Emily nodded, but her legs buckled as she tried to rise. Without a word, he caught her arm, steadying her with surprising gentleness. "My camp's north, not far." "What's your name?" "Emily Carter," she whispered, the act of speaking her name grounding her. "I am Black Hawk among my people," he said. "The traders at Fort Laramie call me Hawk." "Walk if you can, Emily Carter. I'll guide you." With that, Emily entrusted her life to a stranger from a world she'd been taught to fear. Black Hawk led the way, breaking a path through the snow, steadying her when she stumbled. They moved in silence, his instructions sparse but clear. Step here. Rest now. After what felt like hours, the storm eased, revealing a wooded area. A faint glow flickered ahead, firelight. My winter camp, Black Hawk confirmed. The path steepens. Take care. Emily's strength failed on the final slope. Her legs gave out, darkness edging her vision. Without hesitation, Black Hawk knelt. I must carry you. The cold has taken too much. Before she could protest, he lifted her effortlessly, cradling her against his chest. The warmth of his body shocked her system, and she instinctively curled closer. Hold fast, Emily Carter, he said. Your spirit is stronger than this storm. As consciousness faded, Emily's last thought was that death had found her, not in winter's icy grip, but in the warm arms of a stranger whose kindness defied the divide between their worlds. Part 4. A New Beginning in the Teepee. Emily awoke to the crackle of a fire and the scent of savory broth. She lay wrapped in soft furs, not frozen beneath a pine but in a shelter unlike any she'd known. A teepee, its wooden frame covered with buffalo hides, radiating warmth from a central fire pit. Smoke rose through a cleverly designed roof vent, keeping the space snug despite the storm outside. You return to the living, Black Hawk said, seated across the fire repairing a hunting trap. In the firelight, his strong cheekbones and deep-set eyes reflected both strength and quiet wisdom. His buckskin clothing bore subtle beadwork, practical yet artful. How long? Emily asked, her voice a hoarse whisper. 2 days, he replied, setting aside his work. The cold's fever took you. I thought your spirit might have moved on. 2 days lost. Emily tried to sit up, but her limbs were weak. Slowly, Black Hawk cautioned, bringing her a wooden cup of steaming broth. The earthy, herbal flavor warmed her, grounding her in this strange new reality. This is good, she murmured. Thank you for everything. He nodded, returning to the fire. Winter spares no one unprepared. Why did you travel alone? Emily recounted her story. Thomas's death, Willow Creek's abandonment, her desperate trek to Clearwater. Black Hawk listened without interruption, his face unreadable. Your people cast out one of their own, he said when she finished, a note of disapproval in his voice. They saw no value in a widowed teacher, Emily replied bitterly. I was a burden. Black Hawk considered this. The Lakota honor those who share wisdom. A teacher would not be discarded, even in hardship. His words, simple yet profound, stirred something in Emily, a validation she hadn't felt since Willow Creek turned its back on her. The storm rages on, he said, changing the subject. 3 days now, the worst in years. Will your supplies last? Emily asked, suddenly aware she was a burden on his resources. A faint smile crossed his face. I prepare for winter moons. My people follow the buffalo in summer, gathering and preserving. This camp is stocked until spring. He ladled broth for himself. Rest today. Tomorrow, if you're stronger, I'll show you this place. Why did you save me? Emily asked suddenly. Many would have left me. Black Hawk met her gaze. Would you leave someone to die if you could help? When she shook her head, he continued, the storm doesn't care whose skin it freezes. We're all human before winter. His words silenced her, their simplicity cutting through years of prejudice she'd absorbed from newspapers and sermons. As the day passed, Emily drifted in and out of sleep, her body recovering. Each time she woke, Black Hawk was busy, cooking, mending, carving a small wooden horse. By evening she felt stronger, wrapped in furs, listening to the storm's howl, a reminder of her narrow escape. Part 5. A partnership forged in winter. Days blended into a rhythm as January gripped the plains. Emily and Black Hawk settled into a routine that maximized daylight and their shared space. Mornings began with Black Hawk stoking the fire while Emily folded furs and prepared breakfast from their stores, cornmeal mush with dried berries, sometimes flavored with wild sage Black Hawk taught her to use. Survival left no room for idleness. Black Hawk showed Emily how to maintain the teepee, checking hides for frost damage, banking the fire for efficiency, and reading smoke patterns to predict weather. "The wind speaks," he said one morning, pointing to smoke bending east. "Clear skies today, but cold enough to crack iron by night." Emily marveled at his knowledge, honed by generations of observation. In return, she taught him to read and write English with greater skill. Black Hawk was a quick learner, his mission school education giving him a foundation she built upon. "Your mind sees patterns," she noted after he mastered a complex passage from Robinson Crusoe *, a book he'd received from a Fort Laramie trader. "My students in Willow Creek would have taken weeks to learn this." "Lakota children read the land," he replied, tracing letters in a leather-bound journal. "Tracks plant stars, it's all patterns like your words." Their evenings became a ritual of storytelling. Black Hawk shared Lakota legends, of coyotes stealing fire, of constellations guiding hunters, while Emily recounted Little Women or tales of the American Revolution. One night, as a brutal cold snap froze the plains, Black Hawk asked, "Were all your days in Willow Creek unhappy?" Emily paused, softening deer hide as he'd taught her. "No. When Thomas was alive, we had purpose. The school was new, the kids eager. At our first Christmas pageant, they recited Longfellow and sang O Little Town of Bethlehem. For one night, I saw what Willow Creek could be, a real community." "And after his death," Black Hawk prompted. "Everything changed," she admitted. "The school board questioned my lessons. Parents who'd praised me fretted about a widow teaching. Grief was treated like a plague." She looked at him. "How do the Lakota view death?" He considered. "We don't seek it, but we don't hide from it. When someone joins the spirits, we honor them with ceremony and stories. The living keep living to respect the departed." His words resonated, freeing Emily to speak of Thomas, his love of whittling, his dry humor, his dreams of a better West. Black Hawk listened, offering no platitudes, just quiet presence. Part 6. The World Intrudes. As February thawed the plains, their isolation ended abruptly. One morning, Black Hawk returned from checking traps, his expression tense. Travelers passed nearby, 3 men, 1 Lakota, 1 Crow, 1 white. They head for Fort Laramie. Emily's heart sank. "Do you know them?" "No, but the white man, Carter, asked too many questions about a white woman living with a Lakota." His eyes were greedy, gold fever maybe. The encounter shifted their dynamic. That night Black Hawk slept near the entrance, rifle close, a precaution against unseen threats. "You don't trust them," Emily observed. "I trust what I see," he replied. Carter's interest wasn't simple curiosity. The next day they scouted south, finding signs of more travelers, prospectors likely chasing Black Hill's gold, defying treaties. "The Lakota will fight for Pahasapa," Black Hawk said, his voice heavy. "It's sacred land. Blood will spill." "And you?" Emily asked. "Where will you stand?" "I've walked between worlds," he said. "But when promises are broken for greed, some choices are inevitable." Carter's visit and the growing presence of outsiders forced a reckoning. "It changes everything, doesn't it?" Emily said that evening. For us, Black Hawk met her gaze. Winter sheltered us. Spring brings decisions. What's grown between us faces the world's test. I didn't just find survival here, Emily admitted. I found purpose, connection, things I thought died with Thomas. I want to keep walking this path if you do. He took her hand, his touch a quiet vow. Together then. Whatever storms come. Part 7, The Thaw and a New Path. March brought an abrupt thaw, snow melting into rushing streams. As they prepared to leave for Fort Laramie, fresh tracks, military horses, signaled danger. Carter had reported them. 4 soldiers, led by Lieutenant Daniel Foster, were at their camp, investigating a white woman held captive. Black Hawk devised a plan. Emily would approach openly, unharmed with him following, hands visible. They walked toward the teepee, Foster's men tensing until Emily spoke with calm authority. "Lieutenant, you're trespassing in our home." "By what right?" Foster, surprised, explained Carter's report. Emily countered, detailing her abandonment, Black Hawk's rescue, and their partnership. Inside the teepee, she offered hospitality, easing tensions. Foster insisted on escorting her to Fort Laramie, citing propriety, but Black Hawk suggested Reverend Williamson's mission house as a neutral stay, a move Foster accepted. At Fort Laramie, Colonel James Richardson interviewed Emily. She framed their partnership as a bridge for education, serving both settlers and Lakota. Richardson, pragmatic yet cautious, approved her stay at the mission, deferring decisions to higher authorities. At the mission, Martha Williamson's kindness gave Emily space to reflect. Reuniting with Black Hawk at sundown, they planned their future, a life blending their worlds, teaching where cultures met, defying boundaries with purpose and mutual respect. The winter that could have ended Emily's life had instead forged a new beginning, one she'd defend against any storm. Part 8, Building a Bridge at Fort Laramie. The spring of 1879 bloomed across the Nebraska plains with a fervor that mirrored the restless energy of Fort Laramie. The Missouri River sparkled under the strengthening sun, its banks bustling with traders, settlers, and Lakota bands arriving for the annual spring gatherings. The settlement, a chaotic blend of military order and frontier ambition, pulsed with life. Wagons creaked along muddy streets, blacksmiths' hammers rang, and the scent of fresh-baked cornbread mingled with the earthy tang of thawing soil. For Emily Carter and Black Hawk, Fort Laramie was both a refuge and a battleground, a place where their winter-forged partnership would face its first public test. The mission house, run by Reverend Samuel Williamson and his wife Martha, offered a temporary sanctuary. The modest wooden structure, with its whitewashed walls and small garden of prairie roses, stood apart from the fort's stern barracks and the settlement's rowdy saloons. Martha, a wiry woman with a Boston accent and a knack for baking molasses cookies, welcomed Emily with a warmth that felt like a quilt on a cold night. "You've been through an ordeal, dear," she said, guiding Emily to a guest room with a narrow bed and a chipped porcelain wash basin. "Rest here. The world can wait a day." Emily, still clad in her adapted frontier clothing, buckskin moccasins and a wool shawl over her faded calico dress, thanked Martha, her voice catching at the simple kindness. After months of survival's harsh demands, the offer of a hot bath and a clean cotton nightgown felt like luxury. Yet as she settled into the quiet room, her thoughts churned. Black Hawk had been directed to the Indian Agency, a squat building where Lakota and Cheyenne representatives negotiated with Army officials. The separation, though temporary, underscored the social divide they'd have to navigate. Their connection, rooted in mutual respect and shared knowledge, was a rarity in a world quick to judge by skin and status. That evening, as promised, Black Hawk arrived at the mission house. The setting sun cast long shadows across the yard, painting the prairie grass in hues of gold and crimson. He wore his Lakota clothing, buckskin tunic and leggings, adorned with quillwork that caught the light, but carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who'd walked between worlds for years. Reverend Williamson, a bespectacled man with a gentle demeanor and a love for Whitman's poetry, greeted him warmly. "Hawk, it's been too long," he said, shaking his hand. "Come join us for supper." The meal was simple but hearty. Venison stew, cornbread, and stewed apples, served on a checkered tablecloth that reminded Emily of church picnics back east. The Williamsons asked no probing questions, allowing Emily and Black Hawk to steer the conversation. Emily described her teaching in Willow Creek, weaving in anecdotes about her students' excitement over learning about the Erie Canal or reciting Paul Revere's Ride. Black Hawk shared a Lakota story of how the Big Dipper guided hunters home, his voice carrying the rhythmic cadence of a born storyteller. The shared act of storytelling, a thread from their winter nights, grounded them amidst the uncertainty. After supper, Reverend Williamson drew Black Hawk aside to discuss trading conditions at the fort, leaving Emily and Martha to clear the table. "You've caused quite a stir, my dear," Martha said, her tone kind but direct as she stacked plates. "Folks are talking, some with curiosity, others with less charity. A white woman and a Lakota man living together, even for survival, doesn't sit easy with everyone." Emily nodded, drying a tin mug with a flour sack towel. "I expected as much. Willow Creek taught me how quickly folks turn on what they don't understand. But Black Hawk saved my life, and we built something more, partnership, not pity. I won't let gossip erase that." Martha's eyes softened. "You've got spine, Emily. Samuel and I have seen plenty of frontier oddities, trappers marrying Sioux women, missionaries learning Cheyenne prayers. It's not common, but it's not impossible. Just be ready for the uphill climb." The warning proved prescient. The next morning, Emily and Black Hawk met with Reverend Williamson to discuss their plans. The mission house, while a haven, couldn't be a permanent home. Colonel Richardson's decision to defer their case to higher authorities meant scrutiny would intensify, especially with gold fever drawing prospectors to the Black Hills, escalating tensions with the Lakota. Emily proposed teaching, envisioning a school that served both settler and Lakota children, bridging cultures through education. Black Hawk supported her, suggesting his role as a translator and guide could complement her work, fostering understanding in a region on the brink of conflict. Williamson listened thoughtfully, stroking his graying beard. "It's a bold idea," he said, leaning back in a creaky wooden chair. "The treaties promise education for Lakota youth, but teachers who respect their ways are scarce. And settler families here crave learning beyond basic sums. Your Mount Holyoke training would draw them. But you'd face resistance. The fort's officers value order, and some settlers see any mixing of cultures as a threat." "What about the mission school?" Emily asked. "Could we start there small to prove it can work?" Williamson nodded. "It's possible. We've taught a few Lakota children whose parents trade here, alongside settlers' kids. But you'd need the commander's approval, and likely the blessing of Lakota leaders. Hawk, you know who to approach." Black Hawk's expression was measured. "Chief Red Cloud's band camps nearby in spring. He values education for his people, but distrusts white promises. I can speak with him, show that Emily respects our ways while sharing hers." The plan, though fragile, gave them purpose. Over the next days, they worked to make it reality. Emily visited the mission school, a one-room log building with benches hewn from cottonwood and a blackboard salvaged from a wrecked wagon. She met a handful of students, Lakota children curious about English letters, settler kids eager for stories of far-off places like Boston or St. Louis. Her first lesson, a blend of Longfellow's poetry and Lakota Star Legend's Black Hawk translated, captivated them, proving the potential of their vision. Meanwhile, Black Hawk negotiated with Lakota leaders, leveraging his reputation as a trusted intermediary. Red Cloud, a towering figure with piercing eyes and a voice like rolling thunder, listened as Black Hawk described Emily's teaching and their shared winter. A white woman who learns our ways and teaches without scorn, Red Cloud mused, his skepticism tempered by curiosity. Bring her to our camp. Let her speak. The invitation was a breakthrough, but challenges mounted. At the fort, gossip spread like wildfire. Women at the boarding house whispered about Emily's scandalous winter, while prospectors like Silas Carter spread rumors of her being bewitched by a savage. Lieutenant Foster, though sympathetic, warned of growing pressure from Colonel Richardson's superiors to resolve her situation, likely by sending her east to a proper teaching post in Omaha or Chicago. One evening, as Emily and Black Hawk walked back from the mission school under a sky streaked with pink and gold, a confrontation erupted. Silas Carter, flanked by two rough-looking prospectors, blocked their path near the fort stables. His breath reeked of whiskey, and his eyes gleamed with malice. "Well, if it ain't the schoolmarm and her Indian," he sneered. "Think you can parade around like you belong here? Folks don't take kindly to your kind mixing with ours." Emily's pulse raced, but she stood tall, her voice steady. "Mr. Carter, your opinions don't change facts. I'm a teacher, and Black Hawk's my partner. Step aside." Carter laughed, but Black Hawk's calm presence, his hand resting lightly on his knife sheath, silenced him. "Move along, Carter," Black Hawk said, his voice low but firm. "Your words carry no weight here." The prospectors hesitated, then backed off, muttering curses. The encounter, though brief, underscored the hostility they'd face. Back at the mission house, Emily's hands trembled as she recounted the incident to Martha. "They won't stop, will they?" she asked. Martha sighed, pouring her a cup of chamomile tea. "Some folks cling to hate like it's their birthright. But you've got allies, us, the kids you're teaching, even Foster. Keep going. Show them what you're building." The next day, Emily and Black Hawk visited Red Cloud's camp, a vibrant settlement of teepees along the river, alive with the chatter of children and the rhythm of women tanning hides. Emily, dressed in a simple blue dress with Lakota moccasins, carried a gift of tobacco and a copy of Asterisk Leaves of Grass Asterisk, hoping Whitman's words might resonate with Red Cloud's love of oral tradition. Black Hawk translated as she spoke, describing her vision for a school that honored Lakota stories alongside American history, teaching children to navigate both worlds. Red Cloud studied her, his gaze sharp but not unkind. "You speak of bridges, white woman," he said. "Many have promised such things, only to build walls. Why should I trust you?" Emily met his eyes. "Because I've walked your paths, learned from Black Hawk, and seen the wisdom in your ways. I don't teach to erase your culture, but to strengthen it, so your children can face the world's changes with knowledge and pride." After a long silence, Red Cloud nodded. "Bring your school to my people. We will watch. If your heart is true, you will have our trust." The approval was a turning point. With Red Cloud's support and Williamson's advocacy, Colonel Richardson reluctantly approved a trial for the mission school, allowing Emily to teach a mixed class under Black Hawk's guidance as a translator and cultural liaison. The first weeks were chaotic but exhilarating. Emily taught arithmetic using Lakota beadwork patterns, history through stories of both the Declaration of Independence and the Lakota's sacred Black Hills. Black Hawk shared star navigation and Lakota oral traditions, earning the respect of settler parents who saw their children thrive. Yet the outside world pressed in. A letter arrived from Omaha, offering Emily a teaching post at a prestigious girls' academy, a respectable escape from Fort Laramie's scrutiny. She read it by the mission's oil lamp, Black Hawk beside her. "They want me to go back," she said, her voice soft, "to a life that fits their rules." Black Hawk's eyes held hers. "What does your heart say?" She folded the letter, her decision clear. "It says I'm home, here with you building something real." "Let them talk." "Well, keep teaching, keep bridging." He took her hand, his touch a quiet vow. "Together then, through any storm." As spring deepened into summer, Emily and Black Hawk's school grew, drawing more students and cautious support from both communities. The path wasn't easy, prejudice lingered, and the Black Hills conflict loomed, but their partnership, forged in winter's crucible, held strong. Emily Carter, once a widow abandoned to starve, had found not just survival but purpose, love, and a new American dream, one that honored both her roots and the profound wisdom of a culture she'd come to cherish. Fort Laramie, with all its tensions, was where they'd fight for that dream, word by word, lesson by lesson, heart by heart. Part 9. Tensions rise and bonds endure. By the summer of 1879, Fort Laramie had transformed into a powder keg, its streets humming with the restless energy of a frontier on the edge of upheaval. The Black Hills gold rush, fueled by whispered tales of nuggets the size of quail eggs, drew prospectors like moths to a lantern, their wagons clogging the trails and their greed straining the fragile treaties that protected Lakota lands. The Missouri River carried the weight of commerce, flatboats laden with supplies, traders bartering whiskey and rifles, and military patrols on high alert for signs of unrest. For Emily Carter and Black Hawk, their mission school had become a beacon of hope amidst this chaos, but the rising tide of conflict threatened to sweep away the bridge they'd so carefully built between worlds. The mission school, housed in its modest log cabin, buzzed with life. 15 students, 8 Lakota children from Red Cloud's band, and 7 settler kids from Fort Laramie's growing population, filled the benches, their voices mingling in a chorus of curiosity. Emily taught with a passion that reminded her of her early days in Willow Creek, blending lessons on fractions with Lakota beadwork patterns, and readings from the scarlet letter *, with Black Hawk's translations of Lakota oral histories about the sacred Pahasapa. The children, ranging from gap-toothed 6-year-olds to solemn teenagers, absorbed it all, their questions sparking lively debates about everything from the Lewis and Clark expedition to the meaning of the morning star in Lakota cosmology. Black Hawk, now a fixture at the school, served as more than a translator. His presence lent authority to the lessons, his quiet explanations of Lakota traditions earning nods from settler parents who'd initially eyed him with suspicion. He taught the children to read the prairie signs, how antelope tracks predicted rain, how sagebrush could soothe a fever, skills that even the most skeptical homesteaders grudgingly respected. Together, Emily and Black Hawk created a space where cultures didn't just coexist, but enriched one another, a rare harmony in a region teetering on the brink. Yet the world beyond the schoolhouse pressed in with relentless force. The fort's commander, Colonel James Richardson, faced mounting pressure from Washington to maintain order as prospectors flouted treaties, crossing into Lakota territory with picks and pans. Red Cloud's band, camped along the river, grew restless, their warriors holding council fires that burned late into the night. Rumors swirled of skirmishes in the Black Hills, prospectors ambushed, Lakota scouts clashing with Army patrols. At Fort Laramie, the tension was palpable. Soldiers drilled with sharper precision, saloon brawls erupted over claims to unmined gold, and settlers whispered of an impending Indian war. Emily felt the strain acutely. Each morning, as she walked from the mission house to the school, she noticed the stares, some curious, others hostile, from townsfolk who couldn't reconcile her role as a respectable schoolmarm with her partnership with Black Hawk. The women at Mrs. Lawson's boarding house, where Emily occasionally took tea to maintain appearances, clucked their tongues, calling her that widow gone native. Men like Silas Carter, now a regular at the fort's trading post, spread venomous tales, claiming Emily's school was a front for stirring up trouble with the Lakota. One sweltering July afternoon, trouble arrived in the form of a formal summons. Lieutenant Daniel Foster, his uniform crisp despite the heat, delivered a handwritten note from Colonel Richardson, requesting Emily's presence at the fort's headquarters. "It's urgent, Mrs. Carter," Foster said, his tone apologetic but firm. "The colonel's got visitors from Washington, Indian Affairs bureaucrats. They want to discuss your school." Emily's stomach tightened. She glanced at Black Hawk, who was helping a Lakota boy carve a willow whistle outside the schoolhouse. His eyes met hers, steady and unyielding, a silent reminder of their shared resolve. "I'll come too," he said, setting the knife aside. "They need to hear both our voices." Reverend Williamson offered to accompany them, his presence lending a veneer of respectability that might soften the bureaucratic edge. The trio made their way through Fort Laramie's dusty streets, passing merchants haggling over pelts and children chasing a stray dog with a tin can tied to its tail. The fort's headquarters, a sturdy brick building with a flag snapping in the breeze, loomed like a judge's bench. Inside, Colonel Richardson sat at his desk, flanked by two men in stiff black suits, their faces as dour as a Puritan sermon. A Lakota interpreter, a young man named Swift Elk from Red Cloud's band, stood nearby, his expression guarded. "Mrs. Carter, Mr. Hawk," Richardson began, his voice formal but not unkind. "This is Mr. Harold Grayson and Mr. Edmund Pierce from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. They're here to assess the situation in the territory, particularly regarding treaty obligations and unconventional arrangements like your school." Grayson, a thin man with wire-rimmed spectacles and a perpetual frown, spoke first. "Mrs. Carter, your presence here, living and working with a Lakota man, has raised concerns. The Bureau's mission is to civilize the natives, not to encourage white women to adopt their ways. Your school, while admirable in intent, risks inflaming tensions by blurring cultural lines." Emily's cheeks flushed, but she kept her voice even, channeling the poise she'd honed teaching rowdy frontier children. "Mr. Grayson, education doesn't blur lines, it builds bridges. My students, Lakota and settler alike, are learning to understand each other's worlds. That's not a threat, it's a solution to the tensions you fear." Pierce, broader and balder than his colleague, leaned forward, his fingers drumming on a leather portfolio. "A noble sentiment, but impractical. The Lakota are resisting assimilation, and settlers are demanding protection from raids. Your school could be seen as taking sides, especially with Red Cloud's influence." Black Hawk spoke, his voice calm but resonant like a drumbeat in the cramped room. "The treaties your government signed promise education for our children. Mrs. Carter teaches with respect for our ways, not against them. Red Cloud supports this because it strengthens our people, not weakens them. If you want peace, let us build understanding, not walls." Swift Elk translated Black Hawk's words with precision, adding a subtle nod of approval. Richardson, caught between his military pragmatism and the bureaucrat's rigidity, rubbed his temples. "Gentlemen, I've seen the school's results. The children are learning, reading, writing, practical skills. Settler parents are starting to approve, and Red Cloud's ban hasn't caused trouble since the school began. That's more than I can say for most initiatives here." Grayson's frown deepened. "Colonel, we're not questioning the children's progress, but the propriety of the arrangement. Mrs. Carter's reputation, and by extension the Bureau's, is at stake. We recommend she relocate to a more suitable post, Omaha perhaps, where her talents can serve without controversy." The suggestion hit Emily like a gust of winter wind, chilling her despite the summer heat. She glanced at Black Hawk, whose expression remained stoic but whose eyes burned with quiet defiance. "Mr. Grayson," she said, her voice rising with conviction, "I was abandoned by my own people in Willow Creek, left to die because I didn't fit their mold. I found purpose here, teaching children who need me, alongside a man who values my mind and my heart. I won't abandon that for your idea of propriety." The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging like smoke. Reverend Williamson cleared his throat, his voice gentle but firm. "Gentlemen, the Bible calls us to love our neighbors, not to judge them by narrow standards. Mrs. Carter and Mr. Hawk are serving this community, Lakota and settler alike, in a way that honors God's call to wisdom and compassion. Surely that merits support, not censure." Pierce shifted uncomfortably, but Grayson was unmoved. "Your idealism is noted, Reverend, but policy demands order. We'll recommend closing the school unless Mrs. Carter agrees to teach under more conventional supervision, without Mr. Hawk's involvement." Richardson's jaw tightened, his frustration evident. "I'll forward your recommendation, but I'm inclined to let the school continue under observation. We're short on solutions out here, and this one's working. Mrs. Carter, Mr. Hawk, you'll have my support for now, but expect closer scrutiny." Dismissed. Outside, under a sky now bruised with gathering clouds, Emily felt a mix of relief and dread. The meeting had bought them time, but the bureaucrat's threat loomed like a storm on the horizon. Black Hawk touched her arm, his voice low. "They fear what they cannot control. We keep teaching, show them the truth." Williamson, trailing behind, offered a wry smile. "You two are like Daniel in the lion's den. Keep your faith and you'll come through." The next weeks tested that faith. The school thrived, with 2 more Lakota families enrolling their children and a settler merchant donating a crate of primers, dog-eared but precious. Emily introduced lessons on American democracy, using the Declaration of Independence to spark discussions about freedom, which Black Hawk paralleled with Lakota concepts of communal responsibility. The children's progress, Lakota boys writing essays, settler girls learning to weave Lakota patterns, drew cautious praise from Fort Laramie's more progressive residents, including a young journalist from the Frontier Gazette who wrote a glowing feature titled "A School for the Future." But opposition grew sharper. Silas Carter, emboldened by the bureaucrat's visit, rallied a group of prospectors and saloon regulars to petition Colonel Richardson, claiming the school emboldened savages and endangered the settlement. One evening, as Emily locked the schoolhouse, she found a crude note nailed to the door: "Go back east, widow, or face worse." The threat, scrawled in charcoal, sent a shiver through her, but she tore it down, refusing to let fear take root. Black Hawk, ever vigilant, noticed her tension when she showed him the note. "Carter's words are loud, but his courage is small," he said, his hand steadying hers. "We stay watchful, but we don't stop." Their resolve was tested days later, when a skirmish in the Black Hills made headlines. A prospector's camp was raided, and 3 men were killed. Whether by Lakota warriors or rival claim jumpers was unclear. The Asterisk Frontier Gazette Asterisk fanned the flames, printing sensational accounts that painted all Lakota as threats. At Fort Laramie, soldiers patrolled with rifles at the ready, and Red Cloud's camp faced increased scrutiny, with Army scouts monitoring their movements. The school felt the ripple effects. 2 settler families withdrew their children, citing safety concerns, and a Lakota boy arrived with a bruised cheek, saying older boys in the fort had taunted him as a Red Devil. Emily's heart ached, but she and Black Hawk doubled their efforts, organizing a community event to showcase the students' work. The children performed a play, half in English, half in Lakota, about a pioneer and a warrior finding peace through trade. They displayed arithmetic charts and beadwork, earning applause from a small but diverse crowd, including Lieutenant Foster and Martha Williamson. Red Cloud attended, his presence a quiet endorsement. Afterward, he pulled Emily aside, Black Hawk translating. "Your school holds promise, white woman," he said. "But the storm grows. Protect what you build, or it will be scattered like ash." That night, as Emily and Black Hawk sat by the mission house's hearth, the firelight casting shadows on the log walls, they grappled with the path ahead. "If the Black Hills turned to war, our school could be the first casualty," Emily said, her voice heavy. "But if we stop, we let Carter and Grayson win." Black Hawk added a log to the fire, his movements deliberate. "The Lakota have fought for Pahasapa for generations. We don't yield easily. Your teaching is a fight too, for minds, not land. We hold the line together." Emily took his hand, the calluses of their shared labor a testament to their bond. "Then we keep going. For the kids, for Red Cloud, for us. Let's make this school a legacy, not a footnote." As summer faded into fall, the school endured, a fragile but defiant symbol of what could be. Emily and Black Hawk faced each challenge with the resilience they'd forged in winter's crucible, Carter's threats, bureaucratic meddling, and the specter of war. Their partnership, rooted in mutual respect and deepened by love, became a quiet rebellion against a world that demanded division. Fort Laramie, with its muddy streets and clashing cultures, was their battleground, and every lesson they taught, every child they inspired, was a step toward a new American frontier, one where understanding triumphed over fear, and 2 souls from different worlds could build a home together, unyielding in the face of any storm. Part 10, A Stand for the Future. The autumn of 1879 descended on Fort Laramie with a deceptive calm, the Nebraska plains ablaze with crimson sumac and golden cottonwoods. The Missouri River flowed steadily, its banks crowded with steamboats unloading barrels of flour and bolts of calico, while Lakota camps dotted the horizon, their teepees glowing under the harvest moon. But beneath this serene facade, the territory simmered with unrest. The Black Hills gold rush had ignited a firestorm, with prospectors pouring into sacred Lakota lands, defying treaties and provoking skirmishes that echoed like distant thunder. For Emily Carter and Black Hawk, their mission school stood as a fragile sanctuary amidst this turmoil, but a violent clash in the hills would soon force them to defend not just their work, but the very bond that defined their lives. The school had grown to 20 students, a vibrant mix of Lakota children from Red Cloud's band and settler offspring, their laughter filling the log schoolhouse as they conjugated verbs or debated the causes of the Civil War. Emily's lessons wove together American classics, Emerson's essays on self-reliance, Whittier's abolitionist poems, with Lakota stories of the white buffalo woman, translated by Black Hawk with a reverence that captivated even the most restless pupils. Black Hawk's practical teachings, from tracking elk to crafting sinew bows, earned him the nickname Teacher Hawk among the children, a title he bore with quiet pride. The school was a living testament to their vision, a place where knowledge bridged divides, where a Lakota girl could recite the Gettysburg Address and a settler boy could name the 7 sacred Lakota ceremonies. Yet the world outside the schoolhouse grew increasingly hostile. Colonel James Richardson, under pressure from Washington and territorial newspapers like the Frontier Gazette tightened security at Fort Laramie, with cavalry patrols doubling along the trails. Red Cloud's band faced constant surveillance, their warriors shadowed by Army scouts wary of retaliation for prospector incursions. Silas Carter, now a self-styled patriot among the fort's rougher elements, fueled division, distributing handbills that decried the school as a breeding ground for rebellion. His rhetoric found fertile ground among settlers fearful of an imagined Lakota uprising, despite Red Cloud's measured restraint. Emily and Black Hawk felt the strain daily. Walking through Fort Laramie's muddy streets, they endured sidelong glances and muttered slurs. Some called Emily a traitor to her race. Others branded Black Hawk a sellout for working with whites. At the mission house, Reverend Samuel Williamson and his wife, Martha, offered steadfast support, hosting Sunday suppers where Emily and Black Hawk could strategize over plates of roast venison and Martha's famous apple cobbler. "You're stirring the pot and folks don't like the smell of change," Martha said one evening, her knitting needles clicking rhythmically. "But keep stirring. The kids are proof you're cooking something good." The storm broke in early October, when news of a massacre in the Black Hills reached Fort Laramie. A prospector camp near Deadwood had been attacked, leaving 12 men dead and their supplies burned. The Frontier Gazette screamed of savage brutality, though Lakota scouts claimed the attackers were Crow raiders, not Red Cloud's people. The truth mattered little. Settlers demanded blood, and Washington ordered a military crackdown. Colonel Richardson, caught between diplomacy and duty, summoned Red Cloud for a tense council, while rumors swirled that the Army planned to relocate Lakota bands to reservations far from the hills. The school became a lightning rod. A week after the massacre, a mob gathered outside the schoolhouse at dusk, led by Silas Carter and a dozen armed prospectors, their faces flushed with whiskey and rage. Torches cast flickering shadows as Carter bellowed, "This school's a disgrace, teaching savages to read while they slaughter our kin. Shut it down or we'll burn it." Emily, locking the schoolhouse after a late lesson, froze, her hand on the iron latch. Black Hawk, checking the woodpile nearby, stepped forward, his posture calm but his eyes sharp as a hawk's. The children had left hours ago, but their work, maps, essays, beadwork, lay inside, vulnerable to the mob's wrath. "Carter, you've had your say," Black Hawk said, his voice cutting through the clamor. "This school teaches peace, not war. Go home." Carter sneered, brandishing a pistol. "You don't tell me what to do, Indian. And you," he jabbed a finger at Emily, "you're a shame to every decent woman. Get out or you'll regret it." Emily's heart pounded, but she stepped beside Black Hawk, her voice steady as a school bell. "Mr. Carter, this school belongs to the children, Lakota and settler. You burn it, you burn their future. Is that what you want your own kids to see?" The crowd wavered, some lowering their torches as her words hit home. But Carter's fury only grew. "You think you're untouchable, hiding behind your savage?" He raised his pistol, aiming at Black Hawk. Before he could fire, a shot rang out, not from Carter but from Lieutenant Daniel Foster, who emerged from the shadows with 3 soldiers, their rifles trained on the mob. "Drop it, Carter," Foster ordered, his voice cold. "You're disturbing the peace. Disperse, or you'll spend the night in the stockade." Carter hesitated, his eyes darting between Foster's men and Black Hawk's unflinching stare. Slowly, he lowered the gun, spitting on the ground. "This ain't over," he growled, signaling his followers to retreat. The mob melted into the night, their torches fading like dying stars. Foster approached, his expression grim. "You're lucky I was patrolling nearby. Carter's got friends, and they're riled up. The colonel's ordering a curfew, but you two need to watch your backs." Emily exhaled, her knees weak but her resolve unbroken. "Thank you, Lieutenant. We won't let them stop us." Black Hawk nodded, his hand brushing hers in a fleeting gesture of solidarity. "The school stands. That's what matters." The attack galvanized their allies. Reverend Williamson organized a community meeting at the mission house, inviting settler parents, Lakota leaders, and neutral figures like the *Frontier Gazette journalist, Clara Benton, whose articles had begun to shift public sentiment toward the school. Red Cloud sent Swift Elk as his representative, a sign of continued support. The meeting, held in the mission's parlor under the glow of oil lamps, was tense but productive. Parents shared stories of their children's progress, Lakota boys reading Mark Twain, settler girls learning to weave Lakota baskets. Clara pledged to write a series on the school's role in preventing conflict, framing it as a frontier success story. But the heart of the meeting came when Emily and Black Hawk spoke. Emily, her auburn hair pinned neatly for the occasion, addressed the room with the conviction of a revival preacher. "This school isn't just about reading or numbers. It's about giving our children a chance to live together, not die apart. The Black Hills are tearing us to pieces, but here, we're building something stronger than gold, understanding." Black Hawk, standing tall in his quillwork tunic, added, "My people have lost much, land, buffalo, promises. But we gain wisdom through our children. Mrs. Carter teaches them to walk both worlds, as I have. That is not weakness, it is strength." Swift Elk translated, his voice carrying Red Cloud's authority. The room fell silent, then erupted in murmurs of agreement. A settler father, a blacksmith named Tom Hargrove, stood. "My boy's learning things I never could have taught him. If Red Cloud's for it, I'm for it. Let's keep the school." The meeting secured a fragile truce, but the broader conflict loomed. Days later, Colonel Richardson summoned Emily and Black Hawk to his office, where a new figure awaited, Major General Thomas Harlan, a grizzled veteran sent from Washington to oversee the Black Hills crisis. His presence, flanked by aides with maps and telegrams, signaled a shift in the territory's fate. "Mrs. Carter, Mr. Hawk," Harlan began, his voice gravelly from years of barking orders. "Your school's caused a stir, some call it a miracle, others a menace. I'm here to settle this territory, not add to its troubles. The Bureau wants you gone, Mrs. Carter, and some Lakota bands want no white teachers near their children. Convince me why I shouldn't shut you down." Emily's pulse raced, but she drew on the courage that had carried her through winter's darkest nights. "General, the treaties you enforce promise education for Lakota youth, yet you lack teachers who understand their ways. I've lived among them, learned from them, and teach with respect. Our school is proof that peace is possible, not through guns but through minds. Close it, and you fuel the war you're trying to prevent." Black Hawk spoke, his words measured but fierce. "The Lakota fight for Pahasapa because it is our heart. This school is another heart, where our children learn to face your world without losing ours. Red Cloud sees this. Why can't you?" Harlan's eyes narrowed, but he leaned back considering. Richardson, sensing an opening, added, "Sir, the school's kept Red Cloud's band cooperative while other tribes skirmish. It's a practical asset, not a liability. After a long pause, Harlan nodded curtly. You've got 3 months to prove it. I'll send an inspector to evaluate the school. If it's as you say, it stays. If not, Mrs. Carter, you're on a train east, and Mr. Hawk, you're back to guiding scouts. Understood. Yes, sir, Emily said, her voice steady despite the stakes. Black Hawk inclined his head, his silence a vow to fight on. Outside, under a sky heavy with the first autumn stars, Emily and Black Hawk stood by the river, its waters reflecting the flickering campfires of Red Cloud's band. 3 months, Emily said, her breath visible in the cooling air. It's not much, but it's a chance. Black Hawk's hand found hers, his touch a lifeline. We've faced worse, blizzards, mobs, bureaucrats. The children are our strength now. We teach, they learn, and the world will see. Emily smiled, the weight of their task tempered by the fire in her heart. When I left Willow Creek, I thought I'd lost everything. But here with you I've found more, a purpose, a home, a love I never imagined. Whatever comes, we face it together. He squeezed her hand, his eyes reflecting the starlight. The Lakota say the heart is a fire that never dies. Ours burns strong, Emily. Let it light the way. As fall deepened, Emily and Black Hawk poured their souls into the school, preparing for the inspector's visit. They expanded lessons, inviting Lakota elders to share oral traditions and settler craftsmen to teach carpentry, creating a curriculum that wove both worlds into a vibrant tapestry. The children thrived, their progress a living rebuttal to Carter's hate and Grayson's skepticism. Clara Benton's articles spread word of the school to Denver and Omaha, drawing cautious interest from reform-minded educators. But the Black Hills conflict cast a long shadow. Skirmishes grew bloodier, and whispers of a full-scale military campaign against the Lakota grew louder. Emily and Black Hawk knew their school was a gamble, a fragile hope against a tide of violence. Yet each morning, as they greeted their students under the schoolhouse's cottonwood beams, they saw a future worth fighting for, a frontier where a widow and a warrior could build a legacy not of division, but of unity, forged in the crucible of winter and tempered by the courage to love across boundaries. Their story, born in a blizzard's despair, had become a beacon for Fort Laramie and beyond. Whatever storms lay ahead, war, prejudice, or the inspector's verdict, Emily Carter and Black Hawk would face them as they always had. Together, unyielding, their hearts afire that no winter could extinguish. Part 11. The Inspector's Verdict. The winter of 1879 crept into Fort Laramie with a quiet menace, the Nebraska plains cloaked in frost that glittered like shattered glass under the pale December sun. The Missouri River, now fringed with ice, carried fewer steamboats, but the fort pulsed with tension as military dispatches arrived daily, reporting clashes in the Black Hills. The gold rush had turned Pahasapa into a battleground, with Lakota warriors and army patrols locked in a deadly dance, each skirmish fueling cries for war in Washington and fear in the settlements. For Emily Carter and Black Hawk, their mission school remained a beacon of hope, but the arrival of the Bureau of Indian Affairs inspector, tasked with deciding its fate, would test their resolve like never before. The school had become a vibrant hub, its log walls adorned with student work, maps of the Oregon Trail, Lakota star charts, essays on Harriet Tubman alongside oral histories of the Lakota's sacred sun dance. 22 students now filled the benches, their chatter a blend of English and Lakota, debating everything from long division to the moral of *Hiawatha*. Emily's teaching, honed at Mount Holyoke, merged seamlessly with Black Hawk's lessons on prairie survival, how to read wind patterns, how to craft moccasins from deer hide, creating a curriculum that was as practical as it was profound. The children, Lakota and settler alike, carried their learning home, softening prejudices in families who'd once viewed the school with suspicion. But the external world pressed harder than ever. Colonel James Richardson, under orders to prepare for a possible Lakota campaign, had doubled the fort's garrison, with soldiers drilling in the snowy parade ground to the rhythm of fife and drum. Red Cloud's band, still camped near the river, faced ultimatums to relocate to a distant reservation, their council fires burning with defiance. Silas Carter, emboldened by anti-Indian sentiment in the Frontier Gazette rallied settlers to boycott the school, claiming it armed savages with book learning. His handbills, plastered on saloon doors, called Emily a disgrace to Christian womanhood and Black Hawk a traitor to his kind. Emily and Black Hawk prepared meticulously for the inspector's visit, knowing the 3-month ultimatum from General Harlan hung over them like a guillotine. They organized a showcase, student presentations, a display of crafts, and testimonials from parents. Reverend Samuel Williamson and Martha, ever their champions, mobilized allies. Clara Benton, the Frontier Gazette journalist, wrote a front-page feature titled A School-Defying Division, while Tom Hargrove, the blacksmith, rallied settler parents to attend. Red Cloud sent Swift Elk to represent the Lakota, a gesture of trust that carried weight in a community wary of his influence. The inspector, Mr. Nathaniel Cobb, arrived on a frigid December morning, stepping off a stagecoach wrapped in a wool greatcoat, his pinched face betraying a man more at home in Washington's offices than the windswept frontier. His wire-rimmed glasses fogged as he entered the schoolhouse, where a potbelly stove glowed against the chill. Emily greeted him with practiced courtesy, her calico dress pressed and her auburn hair neatly pinned, a nod to the propriety he'd expect. Black Hawk stood beside her, his quill-worked tunic a quiet assertion of Lakota pride, his expression calm but vigilant. "Mrs. Carter, Mr. Hawk," Cobb began, his voice nasal and clipped, "I'm here to evaluate whether this experiment serves the Bureau's goals of assimilation and order. I'll observe your lessons, review student progress, and hear from stakeholders. Be warned, my report will shape policy for this territory." Emily nodded, her heart steady despite the stakes. "We welcome your scrutiny, Mr. Cobb. Our students will show you what's possible when knowledge unites rather than divides." The morning began with lessons. Emily led a reading of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow *, her voice animated as she guided the children through Irving's vivid prose, while Black Hawk translated key passages into Lakota, drawing parallels to trickster tales from their oral tradition. A settler girl, Sarah Hargrove, recited a poem she'd written about the Platte River, earning a rare smile from Cobb. A Lakota boy, Little Star, solved a geometry problem on the blackboard, using beadwork patterns to explain angles, a fusion of cultures that left the inspector scribbling furiously in his notebook. The afternoon showcase was a triumph. Students presented projects, a model of Fort Laramie stockade, built by settler boys using carpentry skills from Tom Hargrove, and a buffalo hide painted with Lakota constellations, crafted by Lakota girls under Black Hawk's guidance. Parents spoke. Tom Hargrove praised his son's reading, while a Lakota mother, Blue Dawn, thanked Emily for teaching her daughter to write letters to kin on distant reservations. Swift Elk, speaking for Red Cloud, declared, "This school strengthens our children for a world that changes like the seasons. It is a path we choose." Cobb listened, his expression unreadable, but Emily caught a flicker of surprise when Clara Benton handed him a stack of her articles, documenting the school's impact. As the day ended, Cobb requested a private meeting with Emily and Black Hawk in the Mission House's parlor, where Martha had set out a tray of gingerbread and coffee, a touch of frontier hospitality to soften the bureaucratic edge. "Mrs. Carter," Cobb began, stirring his coffee with a silver spoon, "your school is impressive, academically sound, culturally sensitive. But it's a lightning rod. The Bureau fears it emboldens Lakota resistance, while settlers like Mr. Carter see it as a betrayal. My superiors want stability, not experiments." Emily's fingers tightened around her cup, but she kept her voice even. "Mr. Cobb, stability comes from understanding, not separation. Our students are learning to navigate both worlds, Lakota and American. That's not resistance, it's progress. The treaties promise education, and we're delivering it." Black Hawk leaned forward, his voice resonant. "The Lakota have fought for Pahasapa because your people break promises. This school keeps a promise, to teach our children without stealing their spirit. Red Cloud trusts it. Why don't you?" Cobb adjusted his glasses, clearly unaccustomed to such directness. "I don't question your intent, but the timing is poor. Washington is pushing for reservations, and the Black Hills violence has Congress demanding action. Your school could be seen as a provocation." Reverend Williamson, who joined them, interjected, his voice gentle but firm. "Mr. Cobb, the Bible teaches us to sow seeds of peace, even in rocky soil. This school is that seed. Closing it now would reap division, not order." Cobb sighed, setting down his cup. "I'll be frank. My report will recommend keeping the school open, on probation. You'll need a board of overseers, including bureau representatives, to ensure compliance with assimilation goals. Mrs. Carter, you'd report to them. Mr. Hawk, your role would be reduced to translation, not teaching, to appease settler concerns." Emily's heart sank. Probation was a lifeline, but the conditions felt like chains. Reducing Black Hawk's role was an insult to their partnership, a bureaucratic attempt to sanitize their work. She glanced at Black Hawk, whose face remained stoic, but his eyes burned with quiet defiance. "We accept probation," Emily said, her voice steady but laced with resolve. "But Mr. Hawk is integral to this school. His teachings are as vital as mine. We'll work with your board, but we won't dilute what makes this school unique." Cobb's lips thinned, but he nodded. "Very well. The board will monitor closely. Any misstep, unrest, complaints, or failure to assimilate could end this. I leave tomorrow. My report goes to Washington within the week." As Cobb departed, escorted by Lieutenant Foster, Emily and Black Hawk stood in the mission house's yard, the night air sharp with frost. The sky glittered with stars, a reminder of the Lakota stories Black Hawk had taught her. "Probation," Emily said, her breath clouding. "It's a victory, but it feels like a trap." Black Hawk's hand found hers, his touch grounding her. "A trap can be outrun if you know the land. We keep teaching, show them the children's strength. They can't break what we've built." Emily smiled, her heart warmed by his unwavering faith. "When I was starving in Willow Creek, I thought my story was over. But you gave me a new chapter, one I'd fight for with everything I have. This school, it's worth any battle." He squeezed her hand, his voice soft but fierce. "The Lakota say the stars guide us through the darkest nights. Our path is clear, Emily. We walk it together." The next morning, news of a fresh Black Hills skirmish reached Fort Laramie. Lakota warriors had driven prospectors from a sacred valley, and the army was mobilizing a punitive expedition. The Frontier Gazette screamed for justice, and Silas Carter's followers picketed the fort, demanding the school's closure. Red Cloud's band, under pressure to relocate, sent warriors to guard their camp, their drums echoing defiance across the river. Emily and Black Hawk faced the chaos with renewed purpose. They met with the children, reassuring them with lessons on resilience, Frederick Douglass's escape from slavery, the Lakota's survival through harsh winters. Parents, both Lakota and settler, rallied, forming a volunteer committee to support the school against Carter's campaign. Clara Benton's latest article, A School Under Siege, circulated as far as Chicago, drawing letters of support from Eastern reformers. One evening, as snow dusted the plains, Emily and Black Hawk sat by the schoolhouse's stove, reviewing plans for the board's oversight. The children's latest project, a quilt blending Lakota star patterns with American flag motifs, lay draped over a bench, a symbol of their shared vision. "If the Army moves against Red Cloud," Emily said, her voice heavy, "our school could be caught in the crossfire." Black Hawk nodded, his eyes on the quilt. "War may come, but we've planted seeds. The children will carry them, even if we're scattered. That's our legacy." Emily took his hand, her fingers tracing the calluses earned through their shared struggles. "I used to think legacy was a schoolhouse named after me or a book of lessons. Now I know it's this, us the kids, the trust we've built. Whatever happens, we've changed the frontier." He met her gaze, his expression softening. "The Lakota honor those who fight for what's right, even when the odds are long. You're a warrior, Emily, in your own way. So am I. Together we're unstoppable." As winter deepened, the school stood firm, a defiant light against the gathering storm. The board's oversight loomed, and the Black Hills conflict threatened to engulf the territory. But Emily and Black Hawk taught on, their love and purpose a fire that warmed the coldest nights. Fort Laramie, with its clashing cultures and restless dreams, was their proving ground, and every lesson, every child's smile, was a victory in a battle for a new American frontier, one where a widow's courage and a warrior's wisdom could forge a future that honored both their worlds, unbowed by prejudice or war. Part 12, A Legacy Forged in Fire. The winter of 1879-1880 tightened its grip on Fort Laramie, the Nebraska plains shrouded in a silence broken only by the crunch of snow under cavalry boots and the distant wail of Lakota morning songs. The Missouri River, frozen into a ribbon of ice, reflected the torchlight of Army encampments, their fires burning brighter as General Thomas Harlan prepared a campaign to secure the Black Hills against Lakota resistance. The gold rush had turned Pahasapa into a crucible of greed and blood, each skirmish fueling calls for war in the Frontier Gazette and panic among settlers. For Emily Carter and Black Hawk, their mission school stood as a defiant outpost of hope, but the Bureau of Indian Affairs Oversight Board and Silas Carter's relentless campaign threatened to extinguish it. As the territory braced for conflict, a final confrontation would force Emily and Black Hawk to define their future, not just for themselves, but for the children they'd sworn to protect. The school had weathered the Bureau's probation with fierce determination. Under the Oversight Board's watchful eye, 3 dour bureaucrats from Omaha, who arrived monthly with clipboards and skeptical frowns, Emily and Black Hawk had expanded their curriculum, blending American history with Lakota oral traditions. Students now studied the Constitution alongside the Lakota's Treaty of Fort Laramie, debated Thoreau's civil disobedience, and learned to preserve buffalo meat for winter stores. The schoolhouse, its log walls papered with student drawings of prairie sunsets and Lakota spirit animals, hummed with purpose. 25 children, half Lakota and half settler, filled the benches, their voices a chorus of resilience against the growing drumbeat of war. Emily's lessons carried a quiet urgency, her Mount Holyoke training infused with the grit she'd earned surviving the plains. She taught with a passion that turned algebra into a puzzle and Whitman's poetry into a call for unity, her auburn hair often escaping its pins as she gestured animatedly at the blackboard. Black Hawk, though restricted by the board to translation, wove his teachings into every lesson, his explanations of Lakota star navigation or medicinal plants earning rapt attention. The children, from wide-eyed 7-year-olds to solemn teens, bridged worlds with ease. A Lakota girl named Morning Dew wrote a story about Betsy Ross sewing a flag under starlight, while a settler boy, Tommy Hargrove, carved a Lakota-style bow with startling skill. But the outside world was a gathering storm. General Harlan's campaign plans, detailed in telegrams pinned to Colonel James Richardson's desk, called for relocating Red Cloud's band to a reservation in Dakota Territory, a move that sparked defiance in their camp. Lakota warriors, their faces painted with resolve, patrolled the riverbanks, while settlers stockpiled ammunition, goaded by Silas Carter's fiery speeches in Fort Laramie's saloons. Carter's handbills, now branding the school a nest of treason, had swayed some parents, and 3 settler families withdrew their children, citing fear of Indian trouble. The Frontier Gazette, once supportive, hedged its tone, warning that the school's radical mixing risked inflaming savages. Reverend Samuel Williamson and Martha remained steadfast allies, hosting strategy sessions over cups of sassafras tea and Martha's cornbread, still warm from the oven. Clara Benton, the Frontier Gazette journalist, continued her advocacy, her latest article, "A School That Defies War," reprinted in Denver and Chicago, drawing letters from Eastern Quakers offering funds for supplies. Red Cloud's support held firm, with Swift Elk delivering weekly messages of encouragement, though he warned that war could shatter the fragile peace their school had fostered. The Oversight Board's final evaluation came in mid-January, a day so cold the air stung like a whip. The board, led by Mr. Ezekiel Vance, a stern lawyer with a penchant for quoting Blackstone, arrived unannounced, their boots tracking snow into the schoolhouse. Emily greeted them with a calm that belied her racing heart, her blue wool dress a nod to decorum, while Black Hawk stood at her side, his quillwork tunic a quiet challenge to their authority. The children, sensing the stakes, sat straighter, their eyes bright with determination. The evaluation began with a lesson on American expansion, Emily tracing the Louisiana Purchase on a map, Black Hawk explaining how Lakota bands navigated the same lands long before Lewis and Clark. Morning Dew read an essay comparing the Declaration of Independence to Lakota communal laws, her voice clear and proud. Tommy Hargrove demonstrated a trigonometric calculation using a Lakota tippy's angles, earning a grudging nod from Vance. The board questioned students sharply, probing for signs of disloyalty, but the children's answers, thoughtful, articulate, and unapologetically blended, left them visibly unsettled. The afternoon brought a public hearing in Fort Laramie's town hall, a drafty barn repurposed for civic gatherings, its rafters strung with faded bunting from a 4th of July celebration. The room overflowed with settlers, Lakota representatives, and soldiers, the air thick with tobacco smoke and tension. Vance opened with a dry recitation of the school's probation terms, his voice drowned out by hecklers led by Silas Carter, whose red face and whiskey-slurred shouts demanded the school's closure. "It's a disgrace," Carter bellowed, waving a handbill. "Teaching savages to read while they butcher our brothers in the hills." Emily stood, her voice cutting through the din like a school bell. "Mr. Carter, this school teaches children to build, not destroy. Your hate fuels the violence you claim to fear. Our students, Lakota and settler, are proof we can choose peace over war." Black Hawk rose beside her, his presence commanding silence. The Lakota honor wisdom, whether from books or the land. Mrs. Carter teaches our children to face your world without losing ours. That is not treason, it is survival. Swift Elk translated, his words echoing Red Cloud's authority. Tom Hargrove, the blacksmith, stood next, his calloused hands clenched. My boy's smarter than I ever was, thanks to this school. Carter's got no kids here, he's just stirring trouble for gold money. Clara Benton, notebook in hand, called out, "The Gazette stands with the school. It's the only thing keeping this town from tearing itself apart." Her words drew murmurs of agreement, but Carter's faction grew louder, their shouts threatening to derail the hearing. Then a new voice broke through, Red Cloud himself, entering the hall with a warrior's grace, his eagle feather headdress casting shadows in the lamplight. The room fell silent, even Carter shrinking under his gaze. Swift Elk translated as Red Cloud spoke, his voice like rolling thunder. This school is a promise kept, unlike your treaties. My people's children learn here, not to become you, but to stand strong in a changing world. Close it, and you prove your words are dust. Vance, visibly shaken, adjourned the hearing to confer with his colleagues. As the crowd dispersed, Carter lunged toward Emily, his face twisted with rage. "You'll pay for this, widow," he snarled, raising a fist. Before he could strike, Black Hawk stepped between them, his hand on his knife sheath, his eyes cold as winter. "Touch her and you face me," he said, his voice low but lethal. Lieutenant Foster, ever vigilant, intervened, his soldiers seizing Carter and dragging him to the stockade for disturbing the peace. The crowd parted, some cheering, others muttering, as Emily and Black Hawk left the hall, their hands brushing in a fleeting gesture of unity. That night at the mission house, Emily and Black Hawk sat by the hearth, the fire crackling as Martha served hot cider spiced with cinnamon. Reverend Williamson joined them, his face weary but hopeful. Red Cloud's words carried weight, he said, stirring his cider. Vance can't ignore him, not with Harlan watching. Emily nodded, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. But Carter won't stop, and the war's coming closer. If the army moves on Red Cloud's band, our school could be collateral damage. Black Hawk's eyes reflected the flames. The Lakota will fight for Pahasapa. I've walked between worlds, but my heart is with my people. Yet this school, this is my fight too, for our children, for you. His words stirred something deep in Emily, a clarity that had been building since their winter in the teepee. When I left Willow Creek, I was running from death, she said, her voice soft but firm. You gave me life, not just survival, but purpose, love. This school is our legacy, but so is us. I want to stand with you, Black Hawk, not just as partners, but as one, whatever the world throws at us. He took her hand, his calluses meeting hers, a testament to their shared journey. Among my people, a vow is made with the heart, not paper. If you choose this path, Emily, it's forever, through war, hate, or peace. I choose it, she said, her eyes steady. Let's make it official here, with the Williamsons as witnesses. A vow that honors both our worlds. Martha, tears in her eyes, fetched a Bible, while Williamson lit a candle, its flame a symbol of their union. In the flickering light, Emily and Black Hawk spoke their vows, hers in English, promising to teach and love with courage, his in Lakota, pledging to protect and honor her spirit. Williamson blessed them, quoting Song of Solomon, "Many waters cannot quench love." Martha tied their hands with a strip of Lakota beadwork, a quiet nod to their blended path. The next morning, Vance delivered the board's verdict. The school would remain open, fully funded, with Emily and Black Hawk as co-directors, their roles equal despite settler grumbling. Red Cloud's endorsement and Clara's articles had tipped the scales. though Vance warned that military escalation could still disrupt their work. Carter, disgraced after his arrest, lost influence, his followers drifting to other causes as the Gazette exposed his ties to illegal prospecting. But the broader conflict loomed. General Harlan's campaign advanced, with troops massing for a spring offensive against Lakota holdouts. Red Cloud's band prepared to resist, their drums a heartbeat across the plains. Emily and Black Hawk, now bound by their vow, taught with fierce urgency, knowing each lesson might be their last. They expanded the school, building a second room with donations from Eastern Quakers, and trained older students to teach, ensuring the school's legacy would endure even if war scattered them. One snowy evening, as they locked the schoolhouse, the northern sky glowed with the aurora borealis, a rare sight that drew the children outside to marvel. Emily and Black Hawk stood hand in hand, watching the lights dance like spirits. "The Lakota call this the spirit's fire," Black Hawk said, his breath clouding. "It means change is coming, good or ill." Emily squeezed his hand, her heart full. "Whatever comes, war, peace, or exile, we've built something eternal. These children are love this school. It's a fire no army can put out." He smiled, a rare warmth softening his face. "You're my warrior, Emily. Together, we burn brighter than the stars." As winter deepened, Fort Laramie braced for the storm, its fate tied to the Black Hills' fate. Emily and Black Hawk, once strangers in a blizzard, now stood as one, their school a testament to a frontier where courage and love could forge a new path. The war might rage, Carter's hate might linger, but their legacy, woven in the laughter of children, the wisdom of two worlds, would endure, a beacon of hope in a land torn by greed and fear, forever lit by the fire of their unbreakable bond. Part 13. A Fire in the Storm. The spring of 1880 roared into Fort Laramie like a wounded beast, the Nebraska plains scarred by the first salvos of the Black Hills War. The Missouri River churned with meltwater, its banks crowded with Army supply wagons and Lakota scouts slipping through the willows, their faces painted for battle. General Thomas Harlan's campaign had ignited the territory, with cavalry clashing against Lakota warriors in Pahasapa's sacred valleys, each skirmish leaving blood on the snow and fear in the settlements. The Frontier Gazette screamed of Indian massacres, while Red Cloud's band, refusing relocation, fortified their camp, their drums a defiant heartbeat across the plains. For Emily Carter and Black Hawk, their mission school stood as a fragile ark amidst this deluge, but the war's fury and a devastating attack would force them to choose between preserving their dream or forging a new path to protect its legacy. The school had flourished under the Bureau of Indian Affairs probation, its log schoolhouse a sanctuary where 25 students, Lakota and settler, wove a tapestry of knowledge. Emily's lessons, infused with the fervor of a circuit preacher, spanned Moby Dick's epic struggle to Lakota tales of the thunder beings, her chalkboard a canvas of equations and star maps. Black Hawk, restored as co-director after Red Cloud's endorsement, taught wilderness skills, how to read a storm's approach, how to tan hides for warmth, his voice a steady anchor for children caught in the war's shadow. The students from Shy Little Star to boisterous Tommy Hargrove thrived, their projects, a quilt of American and Lakota symbols, a play about Sacagawea and Sitting Bull, proof of a future where cultures could coexist. But the war's tide was relentless. Fort Laramie bristled with military might, its stockade reinforced with fresh timber, soldiers drilling to the cadence of Battle Hymn of the Republic. Red Cloud's band, now labeled hostiles by Harlan's dispatches, faced starvation as army blockades cut their trade routes. Silas Carter, though disgraced after his arrest, had vanished into the Black Hills, rumored to be leading a vigilante posse that ambushed Lakota scouts and prospectors alike, his hatred a spark in the territory's powder keg. The school, despite its success, was a target. Settler parents whispered of Indian reprisals, while the oversight board, spooked by war, hinted at closure to maintain order. Emily and Black Hawk fought to hold the line. Reverend Samuel Williamson and Martha rallied allies, hosting community suppers where Lakota elders shared fribread and settlers brought peach preserves, a fragile truce forged over shared tables. Clara Benton's *Frontier Gazette articles, now syndicated in Eastern papers, drew donations from Boston abolitionists, funding a new stove and books for the school. Swift Elk, Red Cloud's emissary, brought warnings. The Army plans a spring offensive. If we fight, your school may burn in the crossfire. The crisis erupted in late March, under a sky bruised with storm clouds. Emily was teaching a lesson on the Bill of Rights, Black Hawk translating its freedoms into Lakota concepts of communal duty, when a rider galloped into Fort Laramie, his horse lathered with sweat. "Attack in the hills," he shouted, drawing a crowd. Carter's posse hit a Lakota camp, women and children dead. Red Cloud's warriors are riding for revenge. Panic swept the fort. Settlers barricaded homes, soldiers manned the stockade, and the *Frontier Gazette rushed an extra edition, blaming savage retaliation. Emily's heart sank. Carter's brutality had lit a fuse, and their school, a symbol of unity, was now a lightning rod. She and Black Hawk dismissed the children early, sending them home with firm instructions to stay safe. As they locked the schoolhouse, Lieutenant Daniel Foster approached, his face grim. "Mrs. Carter, Mr. Hawk, the colonel's ordering a lockdown. Red Cloud's warriors are 10 miles out, and Carter's posse is stirring trouble in town. You need to take shelter." "We can't abandon the school," Emily said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing her chest. "It's all we've built." Black Hawk nodded, his hand on his knife sheath. "The children's work is here, their future. We stand guard." Foster hesitated, then saluted. "I'll post 2 men nearby, but I can't spare more. Be careful, Carter's men are armed and drunk." That night, as thunder rumbled and rain lashed the plains, the attack came. A dozen riders, their faces masked with bandanas, stormed the schoolhouse, torches blazing. Emily and Black Hawk, barricaded inside, heard Carter's voice, slurred but unmistakable. "Burn it down. End this traitor's nest." Emily clutched a rifle, her hands trembling but her resolve ironclad, lessons from Black Hawk's training steadying her aim. Black Hawk stood at the door, his bow drawn, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Stay low," he whispered. "They want fear, not blood." The first torch hit the roof, its flames sputtering in the rain. Emily fired a warning shot through a window, the crack echoing like judgment. "Get back," she shouted. "You'll not destroy our children's work." The riders faltered, surprised by her defiance, but Carter urged them on, hurling a second torch. Before it could catch, Foster's soldiers charged from the darkness, their rifles blazing. A brief, chaotic skirmish ensued, shouts, gunfire, the whinny of panicked horses. Carter's men, outnumbered and outgunned, fled into the night, leaving 2 wounded and Carter himself sprawled in the mud, his mask torn away. Foster's men secured the prisoners, dousing the smoldering roof with buckets of rainwater. Emily and Black Hawk emerged, soaked but unharmed, the schoolhouse scarred but standing. Foster shook his head, half in awe. "You two are tougher than buffalo hide. Carter's done for, he'll face trial for this." As dawn broke, gray and sodden, the school's survival sparked a shift. Settler parents, horrified by Carter's attack, rallied to repair the damage, donating lumber and labor. Red Cloud, informed by Swift Elk, sent warriors to guard the school, their presence a quiet rebuke to the Army's suspicions. Clara Benton's article, "A School Saved by Courage," spread across the territory, shaming Carter's allies into silence. The Oversight Board, swayed by public support and Red Cloud's backing, voted to make the school permanent, with Emily and Black Hawk as directors, their funding secured by Eastern reform groups. But the war's shadow loomed larger. General Harlan's offensive gained momentum, with reports of Lakota villages burned and warriors killed. Red Cloud's band, cornered, prepared for a last stand, their songs of resistance haunting the night. Emily and Black Hawk faced a wrenching choice: stay in Fort Laramie, where the school thrived but war threatened to engulf it, or leave for a safer territory, perhaps Montana, where Quaker missions welcomed mixed communities, to preserve their vision. One evening, as they sat in the schoolhouse, its walls now patched with fresh pine, Emily spread a map on the table, her fingers tracing routes to Montana. "We could start again," she said, her voice heavy. "The children here are strong, they'll carry what we've taught them. But if we stay, the war might destroy everything." Black Hawk studied the map, his eyes distant. "Pahasapa is my people's heart. Leaving feels like betrayal. But this school, it's my heart too. If we go, we carry our fire, plant it anew." Emily took his hand, their vows from the mission house echoing in her heart. "I came west for a dream, education, community, love. We've built that here, against all odds. But dreams can move. Montana's not surrender, it's a new frontier, where our school can grow without blood." He nodded, his fingers tightening around hers. "The Lakota say a fire's strength is in its embers, carried to new hearths. We'll go, Emily, but we'll leave this school alive, its roots deep." They met with Reverend Williamson, Martha, and Swift Elk, outlining their plan. The school would continue under Clara Benton's leadership, with Morning Dew and Tommy Hargrove, now teenagers, trained as assistant teachers. Red Cloud, through Swift Elk, gave his blessing, promising to protect the school as a symbol of his people's resilience. Colonel Richardson, weary of war's toll, pledged to advocate for its funding, moved by the children's progress. In early April, as the plains bloomed with wildflowers, Emily and Black Hawk prepared to leave. The schoolhouse, now a community cornerstone, hosted a farewell gathering. Students performed a song, half in English, half in Lakota, about a river that joins two shores. Parents, Lakota and settler, brought gifts: a beaded shawl for Emily, a carved bow for Black Hawk. Martha baked a towering spice cake, its scent mingling with sage from a Lakota blessing ceremony led by Swift Elk. As they loaded their wagon, packed with books, seeds, and the quilt of stars and stripes, Emily looked at the schoolhouse, its windows glowing with lamplight. "We're not leaving it behind," she said, her voice catching. "We're carrying it with us." Black Hawk stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder. "The children are our legacy, Emily. They'll teach others, as we taught them. Montana's just the next chapter." They drove west under a sky streaked with dawn, the plains unfolding like a promise. Behind them, Fort Laramie faded, its war-torn struggles a shadow against their new horizon. Ahead lay Montana, where Quaker missions and open lands offered a chance to rebuild, a school, a home, a life. Emily Carter and Black Hawk, once strangers in a blizzard, now carried a fire forged in winter's crucible, its embers bright enough to light a new frontier. The Black Hills War might rage, but their love, their school, their dream of unity would endure, a testament to two souls who dared to bridge worlds, unbowed by storm or strife. Part 14. A New Frontier in Montana. The summer of 1880 bathed Montana's Bitterroot Valley in golden light, its rolling meadows dotted with wild lupine and framed by the jagged peaks of the Sapphire Mountains. The Clark Fork River sparkled, its banks alive with homesteaders staking claims, Quakers building mission schools, and Salish and Nez Perce bands trading furs for flour. The valley, a fledgling frontier far from the Black Hills bloodshed, offered a fresh start for Emily Carter and Black Hawk, whose wagon journey from Fort Laramie had carried not just their belongings, but the embers of a dream forged in winter's crucible. Their new school, a log cabin rising amidst cottonwoods, was a testament to their unbreakable bond, but the challenges of a new community and echoes of their past would test their resolve to plant their vision in this untamed land. The journey west had been arduous, their wagon rattling over rutted trails through Wyoming's Badlands, where spring rains turned paths to mire and coyotes howled at night. Emily, her auburn hair tucked under a sunbonnet, drove the team with a grit honed by prairie survival, while Black Hawk scouted ahead, his keen eyes reading the land for signs of trouble, bandits, flash floods, or stray prospectors fleeing the Black Hills War. Their cargo, books, seeds, the Star and Stripes quilt from Fort Laramie's students, symbolized their mission, to build a school that bridged cultures, honoring both Emily's Mount Holyoke education and Black Hawk's Lakota wisdom. The Bitterroot Valley, recommended by Quaker allies from Fort Laramie, welcomed them with cautious hospitality. The Quaker mission, led by Reverend Amos Fairchild and his wife, Eliza, offered a plot of land near their settlement, a cluster of sod-roofed cabins and a clapboard chapel where hymns like Amazing Grace drifted on the breeze. The Fairchilds, inspired by Clara Benton's Frontier, Gazette articles, saw Emily and Black Hawk as kindred spirits, reformers defying convention to educate across divides. Local homesteaders, mostly Scandinavian and Irish families seeking fertile soil, eyed the couple warily, their curiosity tinged with prejudice against a white woman and a Lakota man living as equals. The Salish and Nez Perce, trading at the mission, were more open, intrigued by Black Hawk's reputation as a cultural bridge. The schoolhouse, built with community labor and donations from Boston Quakers, stood ready by July, a sturdy log structure with a stone chimney, its windows framing views of snow-capped peaks. Emily and Black Hawk worked tirelessly, hewing benches, whitewashing walls, and unpacking their precious books. Uncle Tom's Cabin, Longfellow's poems, a tattered almanac. The quilt hung above the blackboard was a daily reminder of Fort Laramie's children, Morning Dew, Tommy Hargrove, whose lessons lived on in their hearts. Their first class, 15 students, reflected the valley's diversity. 8 homesteader children, 5 Salish and 2 Nez Perce, their ages spanning 6 to 16. Emily taught with a fervor that turned arithmetic into a game and history into a saga, weaving tales of the Underground Railroad, with Salish stories of Coyote's mischief, which Black Hawk translated with a storyteller's flair. Black Hawk's lessons, tracking deer, weaving willow baskets, reading the river's currents, captivated the children, who dubbed him Star Teacher for his star navigation classes under Montana's vast night sky. The students' progress was swift. A Norwegian girl, Ingrid Olsen, wrote a poem about the Bitterroot's beauty, while a Salish boy, Running Deer, mapped the valley's trails with startling precision. But the valley was no Eden. Homesteader prejudices, stoked by tales of the Black Hills War, surfaced quickly. At the mission's weekly market, where settlers bartered eggs for Salish beadwork, whispers followed Emily and Black Hawk. Some called her that Indian's wife. Others questioned Black Hawk's Christianity. A local rancher, Patrick Malone, a burly Irishman with a grudge against natives from his Dakota days, led the skeptics, his voice booming in the chapel's community meetings. A school mixing whites and Indians, he scoffed, clutching a worn Bible. It's unnatural. Mark my words, it'll bring trouble. Trouble arrived in August, when a letter from Fort Laramie reached the mission, carried by a fur trader. Clara Benton wrote of escalating violence. Red Cloud's band had clashed with Harlan's troops, losing warriors but holding Pahasapa's heart. The school under Clara's leadership thrived, but Army restrictions limited Lakota access, and Silas Carter, released from jail, had joined a vigilante group, vowing to finish what he started. The news hit Emily like a winter gust, stirring memories of Carter's torchlit attack. "He's a ghost we can't outrun," she told Black Hawk, her voice tight as they read by the schoolhouse's oil lamp. Black Hawk's eyes darkened, but his tone was steady. "Carter's hate is a dying fire. Our school here, the children, they are the flame that lasts. We focus on them." Their focus was tested days later, when Malone and a dozen homesteaders confronted them at the schoolhouse after a lesson. The sun hung low, painting the meadows crimson as Malone planted himself at the door, his sons and neighbors flanking him, their faces hard. "We've had enough," he growled, jabbing a finger at Black Hawk. "Your kind stirring war in the hills, and now you're teaching our kids to think like savages. Pack up or we'll make you." Emily stepped forward, her heart pounding but her voice clear as a school bell. "Mr. Malone, this school teaches your children to read, to think, to build a future. Black Hawk's wisdom keeps them safe in this wild land. You'd rather they grow up ignorant, fighting wars you start." Black Hawk stood beside her, his hand resting lightly on his knife, his presence a quiet storm. "The Salish and Nez Perce trust this school. Your children learn from them, as they learn from you. Fear blinds you, Malone. Open your eyes." The crowd stirred, some nodding at Emily's words, others gripping pitchforks tighter. Before violence could erupt, Reverend Fairchild arrived, his Quaker calm cutting through the tension. "Brothers, sisters," he said, raising his hands, "the Bible bids us love our neighbors, not curse them. These teachers serve your children. Ingrid Olsen reads better than most adults here. Will you destroy what builds your future?" Ingrid's father, Olaf Olsen, stepped forward, his weathered face conflicted. "My girl's happy here. She's learning things I never could. Malone, you've got no kids in this school. Let it be." Malone's face reddened, but the crowd's resolve wavered. Grumbling, he retreated, his followers trailing, though his parting glare promised trouble. Fairchild shook his head. "You've won this round, but Malone's stubborn as a mule. Keep teaching and you'll win hearts." The confrontation galvanized the school's supporters. Salish elders gifted Emily a beaded shawl, a sign of respect, while homesteader mothers brought preserves and quilts, their children's pride softening old biases. Eliza Fairchild organized a harvest festival, where students performed a play blending Paul Revere's Ride with a Salish tale of a lone rider warning his people. The event, held under a harvest moon, drew a diverse crowd, their applause echoing across the valley, a fleeting moment of unity. But echoes of Fort Laramie persisted. In September, a stranger arrived, a grizzled trapper named Jed Harper, claiming ties to Carter's vigilantes. He lingered at the mission, asking pointed questions about the school, his eyes glinting with malice. Black Hawk, ever vigilant, shadowed him, noting his meetings with Malone at the saloon. "He's Carter's man," Black Hawk warned Emily as they repaired a schoolhouse window cracked by frost. "They want to finish what they started." Emily's stomach nodded, but her resolve hardened. "We've faced Carter before, mobs, torches, lies. He didn't break us then, and he won't now. This school is stronger than his hate." Their vigilance paid off. One moonless night, Harper and Malone's men crept toward the schoolhouse, carrying kerosene and matches. Black Hawk, alerted by a Salish scout, roused the mission's men, Fairchild, Olson, and others, who ambushed the saboteurs before they could strike. Harper fled, but Malone was caught, his confession exposing Carter's orders. The mission's council, backed by Salish leaders, banished Malone, his ranch sold to fund school repairs. Harper's trail vanished into the mountains, a ghost of Carter's fading vendetta. The victory cemented the school's place in the valley. By winter, 30 students filled the benches, and a second teacher, a young Quaker named Sarah Wells, joined to handle the growth. Emily and Black Hawk expanded their vision, training older students like Running Deer to teach, ensuring the school's roots would spread. Letters from Fort Laramie brought bittersweet news. The school there endured, but Red Cloud's band had retreated deeper into Pahasapa, their fate uncertain as Harlan's campaign faltered against Lakota resilience. One crisp December evening, as snow blanketed the valley, Emily and Black Hawk stood outside their schoolhouse, its chimney smoke curling into a starlit sky. The aurora borealis shimmered, a dance of green and gold that reminded Emily of their last night in Fort Laramie. "We've built something here," she said, her breath clouding. "Not just a school, but a home. I was a widow with nothing, and you gave me everything." Black Hawk took her hand, his calluses meeting hers, their vows a living bond. The Lakota say the heart's fire burns through any winter. "You're my fire, Emily. This valley, these children, they are our legacy, brighter than Pahasapa's gold." She smiled, her heart full. "When I taught Emerson back east, I thought self-reliance was a theory. Now I know it's us, defying the world, building our own path. Montana's ours, Black Hawk, and no storm will take it." He pulled her close, his warmth a shield against the cold. "Together, we're the stars that guide. Let's keep teaching, keep loving, keep burning." As winter deepened, the Bitterroot School thrived, a beacon in a frontier still raw with dreams and divisions. Emily Carter and Black Hawk, once strangers in a blizzard, had forged a legacy that spanned two worlds, American and Native, past and future. The Black Hills War raged on, but their school, their love, stood as a testament to resilience, a fire that warmed the coldest nights and lit a path for generations to come, unyielding in the face of any storm. Part 15. Embers of Eternity. The autumn of 1890 painted Montana's Bitterroot Valley in hues of amber and scarlet, the Sapphire Mountains standing sentinel over a land now tamed by plow and prayer. The Clark Fork River flowed gently, its banks lined with homesteads, a brick schoolhouse, and a Quaker mission where hymns echoed at dusk. Emily Carter and Black Hawk, now graying but unbowed, stood on their school's porch, watching students, Salish, Nez Perce, and Settler, race across the meadow, their laughter a living echo of a dream born in a Dakota blizzard. Their school, a cornerstone of the valley, had grown into a beacon of education, its legacy stretching back to Fort Laramie, where a widow and a warrior dared to bridge worlds against all odds. The Bitterroot School, expanded with Eastern funds, now served 50 students, its classrooms alive with lessons on Whitman's poetry, Lakota Star lore, and homestead carpentry. Emily, her auburn hair streaked with silver, taught with the same fire that had defied Willow Creek's scorn, her voice weaving asterisk leaves of grass asterisk with Salish tales of creation. Black Hawk, his quillwork tunic replaced by a tailored vest, led classes on land stewardship, his wisdom shaping a generation that revered the valley's bounty. Their students, many now teachers themselves, carried their vision across Montana, from Missoula's new university to Nez Perce reservations, where books and beadwork coexisted. News from Fort Laramie, carried by a traveling preacher, spoke of their first school's endurance. Clara Benton, now a newspaper editor, had made it a state-funded academy, with Morning Dew and Tommy Hargrove as its directors, teaching Lakota and settler children despite the Black Hills War's scars. Red Cloud, aged but unbroken, had secured Pahasapa's sanctity in a new treaty, his faith in the school a quiet victory. Silas Carter's name had faded, a footnote in a war that burned itself out, leaving the frontier to heal. Emily and Black Hawk, their hands clasped, watched the sunset ignite the valley, its glow a mirror of their winter fire. "We were strangers once," Emily said, her voice soft. "Now we're a story, a legend maybe like Paul Bunyan or Sacagawea." Black Hawk smiled, his eyes tracing the stars. "The Lakota say stories are fires that never die. Our children, their children, they carry our embers, Emily. We've changed the West." She leaned into him, their vows unbroken. "From a widow's despair to this, a school, a home, a love. We've built our frontier, Black Hawk, and it's eternal." As night fell, the aurora borealis danced, a celestial fire linking past and future. Emily Carter and Black Hawk, forged in winter's crucible, stood as one, their legacy a flame that warmed the Bitterroot and beyond, a testament to courage, unity, and a love that no storm could quench.